All right, everybody, welcome into the Swishlist Podcast, Season 2, Episode 10. We are so excited to have you here. We got a lot to talk about. There has been big news, big things happening in the NBA, a lot about Joel Embiid, the whole 65-game issue, all-star snubs, what's going on with LeBron James. It seems like a never-ending topic. And we got some fun stuff, too. We got to talk about Paul Pierce. I know, right? Retired player. What's he doing on the podcast? We'll get to it. A lot to talk about today. Very excited. Roman celebrated a birthday this week. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But let's start with basketball, okay? There's been a lot of conversation because Joel Embiid magically shows up on an injury report against Denver 15 minutes before the game with an apparent injury. All of a sudden, he plays the following game. Seems like no issue. We get him against Golden State, and then a player falls on his leg and hurts him. And now everybody wants to say they want to blame the 65-game rule and say that it's an issue. Roman, where do you stand on the 65-game rule? And talk to me about what you think actually happened with Joel Embiid.
I'm a fan of the 65-game rule.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sucks for a guy like Joel Embiid having a great season, but I mean, you got to get players to play games. We can't have MVPs with guys who are playing 50 games, less than 50 games. So I think it's big for the NBA. I think it was a big step for them, a hard decision, but I think it was a good decision. But yeah, I hate that people were acting like he's faking injuries and stuff like that. Maybe he was at first, but it just it hurts you to see Joel Embiid go down, especially with the season he's having, because he's been front runner for MVP, and now we're gonna have to drop back and, okay, is Jokic our MVP again? It makes the MVP race interesting, but it sucks to see Joel Embiid go to especially with the games he's been putting up lately.
The fact that we're even having a discussion about something like this is honestly ridiculous. Asking professional athletes to play in the games that they're paid to play in is a joke. And it's not even that they're going to lose the money that they're paid in their existing contract. Their contracts are fully guaranteed. So they're not going to lose any money there. They're complaining because there's a chance they won't get their max deal or super max deal. They could lose out on 50 million. Well, guess what? That means you're probably going to have to play through some stuff, or you're going to be too injured to qualify. That's just the nature of the beast. But when we're asking you to play in 80% of the games, the reason is because you've got fans that wonder if they should even buy a ticket to Jazz Lakers, the most expensive game that happens in Jazz Stadium, because what's the point? LeBron never plays when he's in Utah, right? The fact that that's even a mental conversation you have to have, that'd be like going to a concert and being like, I don't know if Drake's going to perform tonight, but I got tickets to see Drake and J. Cole. What? You can't make it make sense. And the fact that NBA media has to pander to the player's opinion because that's the only way they're going to continue to get their stories. They have to push the agenda this is ridiculous. It's a joke. Tyrese Halliburton, look what he's going to lose out. Embiid's going to lose. Embiid didn't get injured from a non-contact injury. A guy fell on his leg, and no one's talked about that. No one's talked about that. It wasn't he went out there and popped his Achilles because it wasn't healthy or pulled his hamstring. A dude fell on him. That's why he got hurt. And so making it seem like this is anyone else's fault other than a fluke injury because a dude fell on another guy, it's ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous. And the only reason a rule like this had to be put in place is because these major networks that the NBA has to negotiate with when it comes to contract time, right? Where all of their TV money comes from, the money that gets paid to the players, the revenue share that gets paid to the players, those networks were saying, hey, we don't know what product we're putting on television on a Thursday night. We don't want to pay you if we don't know what's going to be on TV. You want to know why the NFL dominates? Because you see Patrick Mahomes every single week. Because you see Dak Prescott every single week. The Cowboys do major numbers because Jordan Love is playing every single week. And when quarterbacks are out, you don't want to watch those teams, period. When the stars don't play, nobody wants to pay. That goes for the TV networks. Fans don't want to watch. This should be no secret. And so I just don't feel sorry for these guys. I don't feel sorry for you. You got to play in the games. That's what we pay you for. That's what you worked your whole life to do. You didn't work your whole life to sit on the bench in Louis V. You worked your whole life to play in the league and try to win championships. And that brings me to this another point on this thing. I was going to say my second, but this is what, my fourth? Embiid making comments like, I'll be ready for the playoffs. I'll be ready in April. What's the point in the regular season then? Why are we playing the games? You know what? Let's have analytics say who's going to make the playoffs. But then what's the point in playing the playoff games? Let's just have the analytics tell us who should win based on who's better. You got to play the games. You got to play the games. I'm sorry. Why is this an argument? I don't understand. Joe Dumars was like, nobody's calling us about it. Nobody actually has an issue. This is not a real issue. This is just a couple guys crying and complaining. If you showed up and worked 80% of the time at your job, you'd get fired anywhere else. And you're not getting fired. Joel Embiid's not getting fired. He's just not going to win MVP. His contract is still fully guaranteed. He's going to make every single dollar. And if he wants to win MVP, guess what? The best ability is availability. Isn't that what it is? The
Yeah.
greatest ability is availability. You can't be the MVP if you're not available. Guess what? Better luck next year. How about you try and win a championship? Something you've never done. How about you try to go to the finals? Something you've never done, whether you've been healthy or not. All right, off my soapbox. Good night.
I I agree with you. I like the point of football. These guys have breaks in between, so maybe this is a we need a shift in the amount of games that are being played. If you're going to make a minimum, you might want to shift the amount of games, which would suck. But again, if guys aren't going to be playing all their games, we need to get to somehow getting these guys to play more than 80% of their games. So maybe it's a game shift. I don't know what they could do, but the less back to backs, make the season a bit longer. But yeah, we got to get people playing their 25th game of the season coming off a back to back. We need those guys. We need Joel playing that game.
Yeah, we need them to play. This is where stuff gets tough because if the players, if you want to reduce the number of games, all the contracts are going to come down by that same percentage, right? I'm paying you for 82 games. If you're going to play 72, I'm not going to pay you as much. The stadiums are not this affects so many people, right? That's 10 less games that the stadium has fans in the seats. So the stadiums are making less money. What about the employees? What about the guy that's working the hamburger stand and the hot dog stand? What happens to those guys? That's 10 less games. What about the janitors? What about the people running the tickets? Right? This affects a lot of employees. There's so many levels to this. And I get it. You want to try and solve it. And I'm not saying it's impossible to solve. It's just you tell me the NBA player that after saying, I want to play less games, we say, okay, you want 10% less games? How about you give me 10% of your paycheck? And let's see if there's enough guys that raise their hand and say yes. And I just don't think there's going to be a lot of people out there.
Nah, those guys are prideful about their money. There's no way that's going to happen.
100%, 100%. And I respect that. But you can't have it both ways, right? You can't. It just doesn't, it's kind of ridiculous. And this is why, like, I saw Adam Silver extended himself like through the end of the decade. My guy, can we please stop these players from crying so much and complaining so much? It genuinely feels like they don't even want to be there. Like it's so hard to find a player that looks like they want to be in the league. It's crazy.
Constant fines from refs, bad chemistry with teammates. Like it's really bad in the media right now, media to players.
It's a joke. And then you got things like this. Our next topic, Doc Rivers being voted the All-Star Game head coach in the East. What are you doing? This dude's coached 3 games this season. He just got fired.
Chosen on a technicality is it's something that I hate to see from the NBA, especially when like it's not like they can't just change it and be like, no, we'll let this coach do it. I know you're not supposed to have a coach do it back to back years, but having the guy who's been a part of the staff for 2 weeks be the coach of the All-Star team is just wrong. I mean, even Doc thinks it's wrong. He said he plans to give whatever bonus money or whatever he gets
Mhm.
to Adrian Griffin, and it's just like, why can't the head office of the NBA just step in and be like, "Actually, no, you're not gonna coach.
Yeah, you gotta
Somebody else
coach
will
you
coach."
gotta coach the games to be the coach in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Like,
Why can't
hey,
Nick Nurse do it? I know they can't have Joe Mazzulla because he coached it last year, but why not just put Nick Nurse as the coach? Why did it have to be the Bucks?
it's this is the and the worst of it too is the All-Star game, the product itself is such garbage. This just makes it that much more of a joke. Like, it's a joke.
It is, and I'm hoping that them switching back to East versus West this year is gonna change it a little bit, but again, it's probably just gonna be a nonchalant game that ends up being 186 to 174, and we get to see a couple highlights, but nobody really does anything.
Let's be real, dude. If you got NBA players that don't even wanna play in the regular season, they're not trying to show up for the All-Star game. It's over,
That could
dude.
be a vacation weekend for the rest of the team.
It's cooked. It's cooked, dude. All-Star weekend's cooked.
We used to
Ridiculous.
enjoy it. We used to
Oh,
enjoy
dude.
the All-Star
At
game.
this point, the only thing the All-Star game's good for is 2K. You wanna go see the real All-Star game? You gotta sim it on a video game.
They'll try. They will try in there.
We're at a point where the best All-Star game might be putting the best 2K players against each other and watching them play as the players because, the real ones aren't gonna do it,
Nope.
and that's sad.
We've got some old All-Stars too. They're not gonna wanna play more than 15 minutes of the game and
I
just
think
let
I
the young
think
guys go.
isn't Paul George like 10-time All-Star, 9, 10 times?
Yep.
Bron, KD, Steph.
We
It's a
need some
bad product.
banter. We need some type of East versus West banter going, like, right now to get it going so that somebody wants to play hard for this game, some type of trash talk. We need something going for them.
Are there any rivalries in the NBA right now? Are there any true rivalries in the league?
Mm, I can't even think of any
Bro,
because people will say, like, not Celtics, Lakers, Warriors, but, like, it's not it's not a rivalry. It's just like LeBron versus Curry. That's a good question. Is there a rivalry in the NBA right now? Bucks, Pacers.
that's about as good as it gets.
That's the best one that we've got, Bucks, Pacers.
Maybe
Really,
Boston,
Pacers
Philly.
versus anybody who's a high seed in the East.
Maybe Boston, Philly, maybe, but even that's a reach. Well, let's try and find a positive note in the league. Jalen Brunson, first time making it to the All-Star game, got a little choked up when they announced it. Big deal for him. He's put up massive numbers. You wanted to talk about Jalen Brunson and LeBron James. What's going on mine this week?
It was the whole LeBron clamping up Jalen Brunson,
Mm,
late in the game. The Lakers did a great job versus the Knicks. I mean, I don't know if you saw that little frame of Jalen Brunson, and it said he had been double teamed on 30 possessions this game. They the Lakers stopped their best scorer, but the thing that went viral was LeBron clamping up, Jalen Brunson, and all the comments were saying, "Oh, they say that LeBron doesn't play defense. They say LeBron's bad at defense." We've actually talked about this a lot on our podcast, and my thing is we don't say that LeBron is a bad defender. We say that LeBron doesn't play defense. He chooses not play defense. And yes, he's the oldest player in the league. They're gonna take plays off, but I just want to remind people that they're gonna push this narrative of, okay, he locked up one of the best scorers in the NBA right now, and they're gonna keep pushing it. But again, we're not saying LeBron's a bad defender. He just chooses not to play defense when he should be playing defense. Many closeouts, help side defense. LeBron
mhm.
just stands around. LeBron is a great defender when he chooses to be. We saw that in the play-in tournament. But if it's a Wednesday night and they're down by 12 points with 7 minutes left in the game, he's not gonna be your defender. That's what we say about LeBron.
LeBron is a historically great defender, but the LeBron of 2009, the LeBron of 2013, the LeBron of 2019 was not doing what he's doing today on the court. And it's not even just the fact that when he plays, he takes plays off. He has some of the worst body language in the league. Like it's genuinely embarrassing. It is genuinely embarrassing. The way that he's carrying himself, and I am a fan of LeBron James, but the way he's carrying himself is a joke. He will literally not put a hand up to contest. The player will hit the three. He'll smack his thigh and look at his teammates like it was somebody else's fault. I'm like, do you have no shred of accountability? Like
Every game too.
every single game, like there's not an ounce of accountability in the way that he plays. And it's to the point where The Lakers are a television product. They're not a championship product. And so I understand them not being willing to trade LeBron James or what, we're going to see what he does this offseason. Name another all-star player that would be able to do that on national television and not get destroyed for it. Julius Randle was getting crushed for his body language early. Anyone in the league can defend anybody for one possession. I believe that. Just anyone in the league can cook somebody in one possession on the offensive end. But it's what are you doing in the first half of the first quarter when everybody's got energy? What are you doing the last 2 minutes going into halftime? How about when you're down by 18? Are you still playing defense? When you're up by 14, are you still playing defense? And if you watch the games, which it's tough to do, I get it. Everybody's got lives. It's hard to watch every game. If you watch the games, you know, LeBron's not defending the whole game. You've seen it. No closeout is crazy. Like this guy,
Yeah, the late closeouts are the most interesting thing I've seen from LeBron. His fake closeout, like somebody will shoot it, and
getting,
then he'll go over and put a hand up like he was there the whole time. And I
and he
don't know if he
wasn't.
thinks it's working, but I've seen a lot of people hit threes just because LeBron is sagging off his defender.
Because he won't close out. Look, man, he's old. He's an old man. That's why the Lakers are a television product. They're not a championship product. If you are a fan of the league, enjoy watching LeBron play because these are the only times you're really going to get to see him. So enjoy it for what it is, but we can't hold this guy to the standard we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. He's not that player.
He already won his championship this season.
He already won. Yeah, he got his banner this year, and that's the only banner he's going to get, the TV banner. Moving on, all-star snubs. There's a few of them. A lot of people are talking about the Kings, how Sabonis and Fox both got snubbed. Anybody else that stands out to you? The reserves were announced this week.
Probably Trae Young. He's
Mm,
probably the most surprising. I mean, yes, he is very inefficient, leads the league in turnovers,
yet again,
but the guy is he put up 27 and 10 for 2 years in a row now and hasn't been an all-star selection. I figure his name is big enough. I don't understand why he doesn't get selected. Entertaining player, a guy that I feel should be in the all-star game, but just isn't there. So he's probably my biggest all-star snub besides, of course, the Kings duo. But again, the Kings are not big market.
yeah, I think you got to go to the fan base and say, how come you guys aren't voting? Right? A lot of this is in control of the fans. What are y'all doing? And what I look at is how do we reward guys putting up good numbers on losing teams? That's a genuine question. When I look at the standings, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference. I've got the Atlanta Hawks as the 10 seed, 22 and 27. They are right there in the dregs of the NBA. How do you reward these guys that are put up a lot of points, but just play on teams that just don't win, right? Somebody's got to shoot the ball. You got 24 seconds. What are we actually trying to do in terms of the All-Star game? A part of me understands it. Um, I'm not putting him over Brunson. I'm not putting him over Dame. I just can't put him ahead of some of these guys that are in front of him. And so even though it hurts, it feels justified. When I look at the West and we're looking at the Kings, and the Kings are the 5 seed, and neither one of those guys were able to qualify, that's probably the one that I think gets me a little bit more, is that's a legitimate winning team. You got the Lakers aren't even in the playoffs. The Warriors are the 12 seed, and they've got all-stars, but the 5 seed Kings can't, 29 and 19. If the season ended today, the only team right now with a winning record in the West that doesn't have an all-star is the Sacramento Kings. The only team with a winning record in the West that doesn't have an all-star is the Kings. The Lakers are 1 game above 500 and have 2. That's the one you have to make sense. That's the one that I look at and I go, I don't know what I'm looking at here.
Fan bases, Lakers and Warriors outweigh the Kings a million times.
Oh, for sure, dude. Oh, maybe a million times a million.
And that's also bonus, and De'Aaron Fox can probably say is the reason. We're just not big market like them.
I think you got to win a ring. That's the only way you become relevant. And even then, it's going to be
Deep playoff
short-lived.
run or
Mhm.
win a ring, it's got to be one or the other.
100%. I agree. Moving on, in other all-star news, we have maybe the most interesting three-point shooting contest we've seen in a while. That's right. It's going to be Steph Curry versus Sabrina over from the WNBA. This is one of those hypotheticals, right? That always gets talked about. Who's the greatest shooter? Before I get your opinion on it, and I'm genuinely interested. I really think that the first event should have been DeMarcus Cousins versus Brittany Griner. We need to fly Boogie back here and get that one-on-one game because that's what everybody actually wanted to see first. And we were deprived of some of the greatest television the world may have ever seen. Roman, what's your opinion on this new three-point contest we're going to see?
Well, first, I just need to mention that that would have been the greatest thing ever. I mean, the history behind that, the amount of times that clip has gone viral, that really would have been the greatest thing. I mean, Britney's whole story of coming back to America, DeMarcus gets to come back, I mean, we get guys from the G League who are in the dunk contest.
Yeah.
That would have been the Shaq and Kobe of the weekend. This 1v1 in this three-point contest. That would have been beautiful, but the league would never allow that to happen. But I think it's gonna be good. I think it's people talk about how it's a lose-lose for Steph if he wins, like, he just beat up a WNBA player. If he loses, they they say he's not trying or that he got beat, which is bad. But I think it's good for both camps. Like, I think Sabrina is a great three-point shooter. I mean, not from the NBA line, but she went 25 for 27. Like, she's a great three-point shooter. I think it'll be a good contest. She says she's gonna shoot from the NBA line, which I think will be really interesting to see how she does from there. I mean, I'm sure she's prepping for this day in and day out.
Sure.
Uh, my prediction is Steph Curry wins, of course.
Yeah.
The bright lights, this is what Steph Curry does. He's the greatest shooter of all time. I think he proves it, but it should be a really entertaining event, and I'm glad they're doing something different.
Yeah, this is the type of stuff that you have to do to make the All-Star game relevant or All-Star weekend relevant because the game isn't. This will make people watch. Like people will want to see this, and this is good for the WNBA. This is the kind of publicity that the WNBA should get, right? It's a non-contact competition where it's just skill. It's just skill, and they can showcase that hey, we have extremely skilled and talented players, which is fantastic. I love it. I think it would have been more interesting a year from now if you get Caitlin Clark. That would have got a lot of people watching because Caitlin Clark pulls numbers.
Absolutely.
That would have been legendary, and maybe this sets the table for something like that. I would doubt that Steph would do it. It'd probably be somebody else, but if this sets the table for something like that, I think it's interesting, it's exciting, you get a little bit of crossover. So, I like it. No, all of those are down. Now, in terms of talking about NBA players and challenges, NBA players and contests, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett on their podcast, they were talking about how fast these NFL linemen are chasing quarterbacks. And KG said that would they be faster than Paul Pierce right now? And Paul Pierce doesn't believe it. He genuinely believes he's faster than defensive lineman in the NFL. And they called out Vita Vea. Now, Vita Vea is a Polynesian defensive lineman that plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Recently won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady a couple years ago, if anybody remembers that Super Bowl. And he is one of the biggest linemen in the league. He plays nose tackle. Now, this would have been a long time ago, but he ran a 5-second 40-yard dash. You know how freaking scary that is? You know how scary that is? 5-second 40-yard dash. KG's trying to have this be a challenge that happens like during the Super Bowl. And he was like, Paul, we need to train because Vita's up for it. Vita Vea is up for it. And Paul said he doesn't need to train at all. He said he could beat him right now.
Paul Pierce is
So Roman,
delusional, man.
who do you who do you have winning in a 100-yard dash? Paul Pierce or all pro nose tackle Vita Vea?
I'm taking Vita Vea, especially because Paul Pierce is older now. This guy probably hasn't had a gym session like that in a long time. A 100-yard dash? This guy does not run 100-yard dashes, that's for sure. I'm definitely taking the person who is still an athlete. I don't care how much he weighs. I mean, we've seen videos of these massive guys running. Like this is what they do. So I'm not taking an old Paul Pierce, an old delusional Paul Pierce.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Paul. You don't got this one. I just want to let me see if I can do this. I want you guys to see what Vita Vea looks like. This is Vita Vea. All right.
Massive.
Huge. He's 346 pounds. Paul Pierce, no shot. I will sell my
Chill,
house
bro.
and put all of my money on Vita Vea. You have 0 chance. In fact, you probably have a better chance of pulling your groin or your hamstring than you do beating Vita Vea.
Watch out
Because if you don't
for
train, you're
Paul.
gonna pull something.
That first stride is gonna be dangerous.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude. I mean, come on, man. We see Paul Pierce. We see what you look like. No shot.
He's getting old,
No,
man. I think he forgets.
no shot. Speaking of the WNBA, Michael Porter Jr. was on the Pivot podcast, made some comments saying that the WNBA, as far as talent, is very comparable to and pay. The talent and pay is comparable to a sport like ping pong. There's a LeBron James of ping pong that's out there. There's a Michael Jordan of ping pong, a Kobe Bryant. But the reason that they don't get paid like LeBron James and Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant is because no one watches. And unfortunately, Michael Porter Jr., he made the same comments about the WNBA that, hey, it's a great league. We're not saying they're not talented. It's just that no one watches, right? They don't have the TV deals. And even though, and a lot of people are pushing back saying, well, Caitlin Clark can sell out a college stadium. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. And she is pulling massive numbers. And maybe that's a trend, even if that one player pulled numbers. It's not comparable to the stack of NBA games. It's just not. It just isn't. And I get that her game has beat an NBA game on one night. So maybe it's on any given night she can beat the WNBA game in terms of ratings, but you can't over a full season. You just can't. Not today, not tomorrow. And there's the argument that's, hey, the women aren't trying to get paid what the men are getting paid. They want an increase of the revenue share, and they want to be treated better in terms of facilities and things of that nature. The only thing that I would say, because I know we're getting into some dangerous water here, right? This is shark infested
It's where you
waters.
lose people.
This is where we lose people. This feels very similar to the 65 game argument, where it just feels like the players are a little bit out of touch with reality in terms of what the product is on television or what the business does in terms of bringing in revenue. If you want to fight for a higher percentage of revenue, you have to find ways to get more people to watch. That's not, I'm not saying that they're terrible players, that it'll never be a watchable league. I'm just saying if you can create value, if you can create a product that people want to watch, then I believe you can make that argument. But until you've done that, it's very difficult to try and negotiate to see anything different.
Completely agree. I mean, you've talked about this with me, how these sports leagues are labeled literally as entertainment leagues.
Mhm.
So it's like, how can you bring the most people to watch your games? And right now, it's kind of a struggle for the WNBA, which is
Mm.
understandable. Like you said, the beginning of the NBA wasn't as entertaining. The tape delay, and we've talked about this. Lots of games were on tape delay. Even the playoffs back in the day were on tape delay.
Yep.
And rule changes, certain things added to the game have made it more entertaining. But again, it took years and years and years. And also special players come into the game. You get your Larry Birds, your Magic Johnsons, your Michael Jordans. So maybe the WNBA just needs some time to get players like that. And I think somebody like Caitlin Clark is the perfect type of player to bring in those views. But again, it's going to take time. And the whole Michael Porter, his point, it's correct. But again, it doesn't help his side. It doesn't help the NBA. It doesn't help the WNBA. I think everybody already knows the facts of the WNBA and all that kind of stuff. It just it's kind of a dead conversation for me at this point until we see somebody like a Caitlin Clark go into the WNBA. It's the WNBA is the way it is. It's going to be like that until we see some change, which is going to take time.
And I don't think there's anybody that is saying they don't want it to happen, right? No one has a vendetta against that league. I don't want any of these people to be successful. It's, hey, more power to you. What can we do to find that player? Caitlin Clark, what Michael Jordan did to TV ratings, you hope that you see the same percentage increase from a player like Caitlin Clark. It's the best shot the WNBA's had in a long time, and it will be interesting to watch at the bare minimum, whether you literally watch the games or whether you're tracking, social media to see kind of how or what happens. You're gonna watch, even if you don't like the WNBA. You're interested enough. Like, it's come up enough times. There's enough buzz that I think everybody kind of wants to see what's this gonna do. And last, bringing it back to LeBron James, this is very interesting. This is a really interesting topic I've been thinking about quite a bit. LeBron, do you remember when he made these comments about how Bronny is already better than current NBA players? Do you remember that?
This was a while back, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
was this
yeah.
last year?
Technically, it was 2023 if you want to get technical,
Yeah,
but
like beginning of this season, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember it a little bit.
So there's been some rumblings about that comment that have come back up because obviously the Lakers are a tire fire in terms of chemistry between their coach and their players. And I was thinking about it a lot. And you haven't gotten the privilege to work in the corporate world quite yet. Don't worry, it's coming. They'll come for you here soon. But I have, because I'm not the basketball player that you are. I had to jump into that scene a lot earlier. And so I've gotten the chance to, work that the daily grind, the 8 to 5, 9 to 5, what have you. I just want you for a moment, picture yourself at work. Okay. You've been a professional in your industry for 8 years, and a guy that's got another 10 on you, he comes in and he goes, I'm not even going to lie to you right now. My son is better than half of you guys, and he's a freshman in college. Is that not disrespectful? Is that not
It
just like
is.
a little bit disrespectful?
It is.
Like, how do you imagine how the teammates of LeBron feel when it's okay? So he's saying his son that's playing for a losing USC team is better than me. I've been doing this for 6, 8, whatever years. Really? I believe you could make the argument that the number one contributor to the Lakers' chemistry issues is LeBron James.
He's the head of the horse. He's the did I just say the head of the horse? He's the head
You
of the
did.
snake.
There you go.
Yeah, that's better. Head of the horse. I hope he's
Late.
the head of the horse.
It's late.
He's the head of the snake, so, I mean, these comments that he's been making in the media, "Just go out and do your job."
Mm.
It's a buildup. If you're on the team with LeBron James, you're not gonna forget a comment like, "Hey, I think my son is better than you." Like, that's something that would definitely stick with you. It's probably come up in practices or something like that. I bet your son can't do that,
Mm.
stuff like that. But I mean, LeBron is gonna have the ultimate confidence in his son. Hopefully, it was more of a joke, but knowing LeBron, he probably truly believes that.
I just think that the whole thought of it's just crazy. I just picture myself. Imagine if my boss walked in and was like, "Yeah, my son could do a better job than you, and he's a freshman in college." And not to mean it as like a dig, but to genuinely be like, "Yeah, if I could have my son working in your seat right now, I would, because he's just that much better than you." Like, what just a backhand to the face. Like, that's such a backhand to the face thing to say. It's crazy.
He probably didn't even mean it like that, but
He didn't. But the competitor in me, that's what I'd be thinking. I'd be like, "Oh, really? Really? This kid can't even win in college. Better than me. All right." Hmm. I start doing the Denzel. Like, okay, okay, all right. I'm taking it personally, genuinely.
you have to take that personal, especially in the NBA. You think your son is better than me?
Yeah, yeah. What
You think
like
your son
what's
is better than me?
what's gonna motivate you for an NBA TV game at 3 o'clock?
That's it.
That's it right there.
That's it.
I found your
LeBron thinks his
motivation.
son is thinks that his 19-year-old is better than me.
Yeah.
You have to be calculated when you're talking to LeBron, because it's like, it's LeBron James. Like, Christian Wood, somebody like that is probably thinking about everything he says to LeBron.
Oh, dude, yeah. Did you imagine being a rookie and LeBron is as old as your dad?
He he's 20 years older than some of these kids.
He literally could be people's fathers. And he talks like it too. All these young people, they just the clothes and the cars, and they need to get their focus in the right place. Bron, we've seen what you were doing in 2004. We saw you with the flip phone out there at the WWE game. We saw you with the portable PlayStation. Let's not act like when you were 20, you weren't doing that same bull jive and you weren't winning anything at that time. It took a while for you to figure it out. These kids are kids. You got to let them be kids. And the worst of it is too, the Lakers are one of the oldest teams in the league. So who are the kids he's talking about? Just like the other
Yeah,
teams? Like the rest of the league? Like this is Tom Brady. So when Tom Brady started getting older, he really made it a point to try and listen to the music of his young teammates because he wanted to try and stay as connected with his young teammates as he could. He didn't want to get out of touch. Right? It's really easy to get out of touch. I mean, shoot, our sister calls me 40. I'm 27. Like it's really easy to get out of touch.
it-
That's a 10-year
yeah.
gap, and she already thinks I'm 45. She says I'm halfway to the grave. I mean, good night. And so, what may be happening is LeBron, I just don't think that he's as in touch with the young guys, maybe as he used to be, right? I mean, and we see it, right? Where he doesn't know what Bronny's talking about. And Bronny is the age of a lot of these guys coming in. It's fun to watch. I'm a fan. Even though on this episode, I have seemed like such a hater. I've really turned into the Skip Bayless of the two of us on this episode. And America, I'm sorry, everybody. If you just listen to me go off like 4 times, I need to be better. Next week, I'll be better. I should stop talking. Roman, send us off.
Guys, we don't hate LeBron, I promise. He is the face of the NBA, so we're gonna talk about him. So bear with us as we go through these lulls of the midseason. We are on your favorite platforms. We are on all your platforms. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on everything else. We're everywhere.
TikTok, all of
We're
them.
on TikTok. You should be liking. You should be subscribing. If you're not, it's getting ridiculous.
Mhm.
It's really getting ridiculous in the words of DeMarcus Cousins. It's getting ridiculous. Moses and Roman, Swishlist Podcast, episode 10. We are out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Swishlist Podcast. Catch us on social, and we'll see you next week.